Do you guys believe in ghosts? I don't know. There's definitely some stuff that I cannot explain. I can't sleep at night because there's always something scratching in my walls. There was this one night where I heard footsteps above me. I lived on the top floor, and I'm pretty sure it was like 3 a.m., and I heard footsteps, and then I just assumed it was my upstairs neighbor. But then I heard a knock on my ceiling, and it sounded like someone was dragging their knuckles on the wood. So needless to say, I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. And then there was this other time, where I was driving home from a bar, and I looked over, and I saw the ghost of an old woman kind of dragging herself across the road. And it's not like she fell or anything. She just kind of looked like she was intoxicated. And I watched her go like 10 feet, and then she just dissipated into thin air. But you know, to each their own. Some people see ghosts, and other people see things like old hairy men dressed in robes in their mirrors at 3 a.m. Hi, I'm here to tell you a story. All of these people are about to find out why you should never look in the mirror after 3 a.m. Our first story is going to be the mirror at midnight. A young man named Mark was moving into his new apartment. It was pretty cheap for the size of it. But the only catch was it was in a really sketchy part of town. But Mark didn't care. He was desperate for a place, and his lease was up at the end of the month. So he signed the papers and moved right in. The apartment was huge, 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And the guy that owned the place showed him around, and he answered any questions that Mark had. But there was one thing that Mark was really curious about. In the master bedroom was a full-length mirror, and it was old, like antique old, and there was no glass on it. It was just a silver backing, and the paint was chipped. And Mark asked the owner about it, and the owner just gave him this weird look, and then quickly changed the subject. But Mark wasn't gonna let it go. So he kept asking him about it, and finally the owner snapped and told him, "Look, I don't know what you heard about this place, but it's just an old mirror. Okay, there's nothing bad about it." Later that night, Mark couldn't sleep. He kept hearing noises throughout the apartment. He heard footsteps and voices, and sometimes it sounded like someone was right next to him, and he would turn over and they would disappear. And he tried to tell himself that it was just old pipes or settling wood, but he couldn't help but think that it was something else. And then at midnight, he got out of bed to go to the bathroom, but as he walked past the mirror, he caught his reflection. Except it wasn't his reflection. It was a skeletal-looking man wearing 19th century clothes. And he was smiling wickedly at Mark. Mark screamed and fell backwards, hitting his head on the hardwood floor. Mark woke up in the middle of the night again, and this time he brought a flashlight with him to the bathroom. And as he walked past the mirror, he turned it on and he stared at his reflection. But whatever spirit was inhabiting, it wasn't there. And Mark breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe it was just his imagination. But as he turned to leave, he saw it. It was there, standing right behind him. The spirit smiled and Mark screamed again, but this time no one could hear him, because the mirror absorbed his screams. In the morning, Mark called the landlord and demanded that he come fix the problem. But the landlord just laughed at him and said, "You're telling me a mirror scared you? You gotta be kidding me." And Mark ended up moving out, but he wasn't the same ever again. Every time he passed by that mirror, he could feel the spirit's cold hand on his shoulder, and he could hear its raspy voice whispering in his ear. Our next story is going to be the mirror. Ever since I was little, I have always been afraid of mirrors. Even now as an adult, I try to avoid looking in them whenever I can. My parents have no idea why, but I can't help it. I mean, when I look in a mirror, I can't see myself. Instead, I see something or someone lurking behind my skin. From the moment I wake up until the sun goes to bed, this entity speaks through me and controls my actions. I am completely aware of what's happening and I try to resist, but it's no use. This being is very evil and has no mercy. I can feel it getting stronger every day. People often ask me why I wear long-sleeve shirts and high-neck sweaters. It's because this thing doesn't like to show itself, and the more skin it sees, the angrier it becomes. I honestly don't know what to do anymore. I'm so desperate to be rid of it. But when I look in the mirror, I am terrified of what I will see. Our next story is going to be Mirror, Mirror. I moved into a new apartment. The neighbors told me, don't use the mirror at night. But I didn't listen. And that's when everything went wrong. At first, nothing unusual happened. The mirror just seemed old and creaky. But one night I needed to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. I walked past the mirror and my blood ran cold. My reflection wasn't mine. It was a woman wearing a Victorian nightgown. She stared at me with hollow eyes, and a twisted smile stretched across her pale face. I screamed and backed away. Then every night at 3 a.m., she appeared in the mirror. Sometimes she beckoned to me with a finger. Other times, she just stood there smiling. I tried covering the mirror with a cloth, but the moment I turned away, she was back, staring at me with her twisted smile. I started having nightmares of being chased through a dark and endless hallway by a faceless woman in a nightgown. She always remained just out of reach, and her silence was more terrifying than any scream. One night, I found a small antique key hidden under the loose floorboard. Curiosity overwhelmed me, and I searched the apartment. There was no lock that looked old enough to fit that key. Then I examined the mirror again and noticed a slight indentation on the frame. I inserted the key and turned it. The mirror swung open, revealing a dark cavity. I hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. Inside the mirror, I found myself in a dark and narrow hallway lit by flickering gas lamps. I continued walking until I reached a door at the end of the hall. I knocked, then pushed it open. To my horror, the room was filled with hundreds of mirrors, each reflecting a distorted and ghastly version of myself. I turned and fled. I ran through the dark hallway, stumbling over unseen obstacles. The sound of my own screams echoed around me. Then I remembered the key. If I could get back to the mirror, I might be able to escape. I raced back to it, inserted the key, and turned it. The mirror swung open, and I collapsed to the floor on the other side. Gasping for breath, I stared at my reflection. The woman in the nightgown was gone. But as I looked closer, I realized it wasn't my face staring back at me. It was a distorted and grotesque version of myself, my eyes wide with terror, my skin pallid, and my mouth twisted into a silent scream. I stumbled back, knocking the mirror over. As it shattered, the distorted reflection dissipated, and I felt something dark and evil rise within me. I could feel its presence growing stronger with every heartbeat, and as the first rays of sunlight crept into the room, I knew I had lost. The mirror had claimed me. Thanks for watching. Which one of these stories was your favorite? For me, it's definitely got to be the mirror. Oh gosh, that ending. I was not expecting that. But if you want to hear more horror stories, all you have to do is follow. Until next time, happy haunting.